Good afternoon, everybody. This is really exciting. I want to first thank Daniel. I've never met Daniel, but I know this is his big event, and without his approval, I wouldn't be up here. And obviously, thanks Stan, who's been a tremendous support to me, and everyone else on the planning committee. There's a lot of wonderful people here that could be up here speaking, and I feel really fortunate that I was one of the few that has this opportunity today. 2 years ago, I attended my first major event with Enagic, and it was right here in this room. And I was pretty new to the organization. And since that time, obviously some of you know that I'm on the DVD that Stan was referring to. Since that time, I've given many talks at different locations around the country and in Canada, and a lot of questions have come up, as Dr. Pilser was talking about. So here I was answering these questions. And as a result of those questions, that was one of the stimuli to write the book. And so I really am proud of the contents of the book. We had a second edition that was just printed a few weeks ago, and that's what you've all been given a copy of, and that's what Stan has available. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. It was really a pleasure to talk to some of you today and hear some of the stories of your prospects who have read the book, and it's helped open doors that were shut. So I want to thank Stan again for this opportunity. Now, what I want to do is I don't want to repeat what I talked about in the past, but some of you I know are new and haven't heard me speak yet, and I do feel like there's a need to go over some of the basic biochemistry, just so you can understand the value and the importance of the machine and the water. And I'm going to change the story around a little bit today, do something a little bit different that maybe some of you haven't heard yet. I'm assuming the slides are going to be... Oh, good. So, looking over there and there. Okay. So this is the book. Now, these are my children, and this was several years ago. But I have a very active family, and they're the reason I do everything I do. I have a wife who's tremendously supportive of all the time that I spend away. And, you know, one of the things, it's always scary for me to stand in the back and see all these people. But several of you came up to me today and said things that really reassured me that we're all a family here. We're on the same page. We want to promote healing throughout the world. And I join you in that effort. My children, my oldest son on the right there was a two-time first-team All-Ohio football player, wide receiver, and the son in the middle was a pole vaulting champion locally. And then my girls are obviously very active. I got involved in Enagic. I'm going to tell you that story briefly, but I got involved in this about 3 years ago. And I'm going to be 52 in 3 weeks. And probably 5 years ago, I was feeling the age. I mean, I had a self-propelling lawnmower, and I was using it. Now, I started to drink the water, and it has changed me. And I can't tell, I mean, if weights come up right now, I'm ready to do some push-ups with you. That's how good I feel. Last week, I played twice basketball, full-court basketball for 2 hours with kids my son's age, in their 20s. I kept up with them. In fact, they had me guard the most aggressive guys because I'm an aggressive guy. Now, I'm not that good of a shot, not good of a player, but at 52, I never thought I could play full-court basketball and keep up with them. I lift weights twice a week, and I feel stronger now than I've ever felt. I'm getting ready to enter in the spring and the summer, I start pole vaulting, and I have a title to defend in July. And I just can't tell you how great I feel physically, and I attribute a lot of this to the water. Okay, so obviously, these are my children. This is my immediate family, my parents and my brother, his family on the left. These people mean a lot to me. In fact, my brother lives here in San Marcos. He's here with me, and he's my bodyguard. So watch out for him. He's a Marine pilot, and he'll just be nice to him, or I'll stick him on you. And then this is a family tradition every year. On Christmas Eve, we go caroling, and that was our picture this year as we were caroling and having fun as a family. Okay, so let me get down to how I got here. I wanted to be a doctor as a young kid. My first semester of college, I developed a case of mononucleosis, was pretty sick, missed a lot of classes, my grades suffered. At the end of that first year, the pre-med advisor said, I don't think you're going to have the grades to get into medical school. You need to think about doing something different. I was really disappointed in that because this was my life dream. But I thought he knew what he was doing, and one of the major mistakes in my life was listening to somebody else's opinion on what I should do with my life. So I listened. And so I got my degree in nutrition, and then I went to graduate school. This is at Ohio State. Did my PhD coursework there, worked in the laboratory, was a lab technician, helped fellow students get their degrees, and this was 8 years later. I'm accepted into medical school, completed the coursework, but hadn't finished the research. A lot of hurdles, long story. I decided I had this opportunity to go to medical school, I had to pursue it. After 8 years, I didn't quite reach that goal. But it's taken me on a path that I'm very happy with at this point in my life. So I went to medical school at Ohio State, and I'm really happy. There's, I would guess, probably a half dozen medical doctors like me in the audience, and I think that's phenomenal. And it's really nice to know that you're out there because we're kindred spirits, and I know that you can identify with some of the experiences that you had in medical school, because allopathic doctors are the standard American doctor. And we go to schools like Harvard and Ohio State and Loma Linda and all these other medical institutions. And we're trained to diagnose disease, and then we're trained to manage it with medications or procedures. And really what medical doctors are, at many times, are managing chronic disease, and there's not a lot of effort or energy put into reversing or preventing disease. So after I completed all my training, I was finally grown up. At the age of 40, I had my first job. Took this job at Trinity Hospital in Northeast Ohio, rural Appalachian area. Let me tell you about two patients that I recently took care of, because in addition to my medical practice, I also take care of people in the hospital. So these are two recent patients I took care of. 56-year-old woman, 550 pounds. She was on her way to the doctor's office when she tripped and fell and hurt her knee, and she couldn't get up. Didn't know what to do with her, so they brought her to the emergency room. Nothing's broken, but she couldn't walk. They found that she had a urinary infection. Normally we'd send you home, but here's a person that can't walk, can't go home. What are we going to do with her? Well, I was on call, so they called me up and said, you need to admit her to the hospital. So we had her in the hospital for 4 days. Guess how much that cost us? Okay, now, we were not really doing much for her, okay, but we had to. Here's her medical history. Here's her social history. She had breast cancer. She had the radiation burns that Dr. Pilzer was talking about. She had, when I walked in the room to see her one day, and she's a diabetic, on her tray, she had a Snickers bar and a Mountain Dew can of pop. When she rolled over, she would need help moving her abdominal panel. She was that big. You could smell her from the doorway. These are her list of medications. And there's the beloved Coumadin that every physician absolutely hates and is scared of because of the disasters that can follow it. The monthly retail cost of these medications, almost $2,000. This adds up to $22,000 a year to manage chronic medical conditions that a poor lifestyle have invited. Okay, that's modern healthcare. Another patient I took care of, this was his leg after he was improved. 67-year-old male who went to the hospital because he couldn't breathe and he couldn't walk. 445 pounds when he was admitted, and when he was discharged, 8 days later, he had lost 50 pounds of fluid. Okay, we call this diuresis. We got the fluid off of the system. Here's his medical history. Here's his surgical history. Here's his medication list. Now, what do you think about healthcare in America? I mean, when I see this, this is why I do what I do, because I can't stand for this. This is not helping people heal. So as a result of this, after a year or two in practice, my nutrition kicks in, and I realize that obesity and heart disease and diabetes and acid reflux and hypertension, high cholesterol, many times, in fact, most of the times, have a basis based on an unhealthy lifestyle. So we need to educate people. We need to motivate them, inspire them to change. As a result of this, I committed 8 years ago to develop a wellness program. This wellness program is called Fit for Life. In 2006, our hospital applied for a federal grant through the Office of the Health Resources and Services Administration. We were given $375,000 to teach people how to not live like these two patients are living, which is barely surviving and very hopeless. This program was so successful that we applied for another grant that we received for another $375,000, which allows us to teach people in 12 weeks how to eat, how to exercise, how to manage stress, how to prevent disease. This program was also successful. In fact, we've had more than 1,200 people graduate, and every one of our graduates have said they would recommend this program to family or friends. As a result of this success, we applied for a third grant. This year, there were 200 rural areas around the country applying for grants like this. 70 were awarded. We were awarded a third grant. And this was just 2 weeks ago. As a result of the success that we've had in promoting wellness, I was invited on Tuesday to the White House. The President had appointed a committee a year ago on the Rural Council on Improving Health in Rural America. And as a grant director who has had a successful program, I was invited to meet with the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Secretary of Agriculture. Guess what my message was? I said that we have, they're about policies and procedures and legislation, and I said, when I finally had my moment, there's no question that we need help and we need legislation. But I can tell you, and speak on behalf of my patients and my community, that there's much more to health in America than what we're doing here in Washington. I didn't say it quite that way. But I said there's a poverty of thought, there's a poverty of belief in themselves, there's a poverty of hope, there's a poverty in education and understanding health and wellness. And that's what our program is designed to do. And one thing that I know, and I know you will all confirm this with a resounding yes, is that we all here believe that we need to empower individuals to take charge of their own health. We need to show them, we need to model to them, we need to educate, inspire, motivate, and help people change, not externally, but from within. And that's what we're doing here, isn't it? We're helping people heal from within by drinking the best water on the planet. Okay, so here's a slide of some of the participants in a class. Now, my story with Enagic picks up 3 years ago. In this worksite wellness class, we were teaching at a nursing home. Linda, if I can point her around, I guess this won't work. She's sitting over on the right-hand side. She came up to me after one of the meetings and said, you need to come to a meeting and learn about this Kangen water. This is amazing technology. And I said, what? And she said, well, I don't know too much about it, but you need to learn about it. She was very persistent week after week. And I finally thought, I need to go because she's been respectful to me in my message. I need to respect her and her message. But as I sat there, in one of the typical presentations, I was pretty smug in my thoughts that this was hype, this was a hoax, there was no science behind it, and I'm just going to spend my time here and get out and tell her I went to the meeting like she asked. But then I became very impressed with what I saw, with the pH meter and the ORP meter. There was no magic there. This was science. This was my comfort zone. This is what I spent over 8 years in laboratories doing. And so I knew there's something to this. And most of you have been in that position. You go to a meeting not expecting much, and you're kind of blown away by what you see and what you hear. So this was my experiment. Now, the microclustering was always kind of a hurdle for me. The tea experiment that we're all familiar with, I wasn't really sure how to explain that, made me scratch my head, but the 2 meters couldn't lie. And then I was like you, I went home from this and I told my wife, we need to learn more about it. And then I got on the internet. That's what I thought. And then I thought, a lot of testimonials here. In science, we don't put a lot of credence in testimonials. Then there's competition. There's other brands. Then there's the cost of the machine. I was thinking maybe we ought to get one, and my wife was saying, no way, not at that cost. Then there was science. Where's the science? What kind of studies have been done? There was the whole idea of direct marketing, which is something I had always tried to avoid. There was, am I a salesman or am I a clinician? What am I doing here in this world? And then, of course, there was a time factor. And all those issues I had to address before I became involved in Enagic. Well, like many of you, I learned that the Kangen scam was written by a competitor, so that was discredited pretty quickly. I found science to support the idea of ionized water. I realized that testimonials had their place, and they're actually really add a lot to our understanding. I'm not really a salesman. I'm primarily a clinician, but I am a 6A because I have some real good people on my team. I have no problem with direct marketing because I think it's the best way to market a product. So I got through the hurdle. And as a result of that, and the result of the questions that I've heard you ask, and my interactions with colleagues who I initially was very reluctant to talk to, I wrote the book, Withstands Help. And I think it will be a great help for all of you. I'm really glad that you all got a copy of it. Some of you got the first, bought the first version. The second edition just came out a few weeks ago, which you have. And there's some things that have been added to it that I think will make it an even better selling point for your prospects. Okay, so that's my introduction into Kangen Water. I want to talk briefly about the medical side of this and get through this as quick as I can because this is all really outlined in the book. We talked about stresses and imbalance of forces, and that this particular stress that we need to understand in health is oxidative stress. In oxidative stress, the vehicle for oxidative stress is free radicals. What's interesting is we knew about free radicals and their role in diseases and in aging way back in 1956. This article was published in the Journal of Gerontology, but it's laid dormant until just recently. So a free radical is an unpaired, negatively charged particle. It moves at high speeds, and it steals electrons from adjacent atoms, and it makes those atoms then unstable because nature likes stability. And so when you lose that stability, when those electrons aren't paired, you have a reactive molecule. Okay, and this is believed to be the root cause of aging and disease. All right, now people say, well, where do they come from? Well, most of the free radicals are generated in our day-to-day activities. Anytime you breathe oxygen, you're going to make free radicals. When you exercise, you're going to breathe more oxygen to make more free radicals. Our body is designed to manage that, no problem. What it's not designed to do is the overwhelming additional sources of free radicals. And these are some of the additional sources. Okay, so let me try to get through this kind of quickly for you. Some of you have heard this. I don't know why my clicker's not working. There we go. So, Mr. Oshiro talked about turmeric, one of the best antioxidants that you can take. All of the medical conferences that I've gone to recently have talked about turmeric. It's an absolutely wonderful product. What antioxidants do is they donate an extra electron. They have an additional electron that they can donate to stop or to neutralize the propagation of free radical reactions. And that's what this slide is depicting. When you have excessive free radical destruction, it affects various tissues. It will attack proteins, it will attack nucleic acids, it will attack lipids or fats. When it attacks the collagen, which is a protein that's a very strong protein, it will cause the skin to age prematurely. When it attacks the elastin protein in the arteries become stiff because the protein changes its structure, and hypertension follows. Many of you will have normal blood pressure until you hit your 60s or 70s, and then all of a sudden you get high blood pressure. It's because of the aging process of those blood vessels that happens many times. When you damage the lining of the arteries and you lay down atherosclerotic plaque, and it becomes oxidized through oxygen and hydrogen peroxide, you develop atherosclerotic plaque, hardening of the arteries. And then finally, if it damages or attacks the DNA, then it can cause injury to the DNA and the RNA that our body will repair. Every now and then it doesn't repair efficiently, and that's the beginning stage of cancer or a growth. So as I said, nature, or in my belief system, this was God, already provided a way to protect us against the typical free radicals that we would be exposed to throughout our lifetime. And that protection comes from the foods we eat. A plant-based diet, which is Dr. Shinya's diet, is the diet that we should all strive to follow. Make that 85% of what you eat at a minimum. We really need to get back to fruits and vegetables, nuts and grains and whole seeds, and we need to eat them in the raw form as much as we possibly can. If any of you have heard Shannon Stratton or Wade Lightheart talk, you know that they really pound this message very strongly. This is just a nice slide that shows you the oxygen radical absorbance capacity of many of these foods. Okay, so if you look, you can see the numbers. These have very high antioxidant potential, and if you kind of group these together, you'll see that the berry family and the bean families are some of the most healthy foods that you can eat because they're rich in antioxidants. When you put these foods in a microwave, or when you heat them, you destroy to varying degrees the antioxidants that are there. The minerals and the vitamins remain that you remove or you neutralize those free from those antioxidants. So it's always best to eat these raw. Okay, because antioxidants are so important, our cells have gone to extreme measure to protect us against the exposure of free radicals in different locations in our body. So on the cell membrane, vitamin E and beta-carotene are the primary protector of that particular structure. They're antioxidants. Outside the cell, in the fluid, it's vitamin C and a compound called glutathione. Inside the cell, I don't need to read these to you, but your body is an amazing machine. It's designed to heal itself. All we have to do is nurture it. All we have to do is protect ourselves from many of the exposures that 21st, in this century, that many Americans and many people throughout the world are exposed to. The chemistry of ionized water is pretty simple. It's through a process of electrolysis. We put two probes in water with a semi-permeable membrane. We apply current, and the electrons split off of hydrogen, the hydrogen in water, so water actually splits. And by convention, the electrons, as you can see on this diagram, flow towards the cathode side of the reaction. That is the side of and this is what's happening inside the unit. That's the side that makes alkaline water because it makes hydroxyl groups. Remember that when electrons are flowing, electrons are what we need to neutralize free radicals. So what you get in the alkaline water is free electrons. They're not necessarily free, but they're bound to hydrogen in a very weak manner, and they can easily be donated. So that's what the machine is doing. Now on the opposite side, you have acid water. That water is not an antioxidant, it's oxidizing. So that's why this makes it a perfect water put on top for topical applications, because not only is it acidic, it kills bacteria, as Dr. Pilser said, but it's also oxidizing. It's like hydrogen peroxide. That's also why he said don't put that in your body. That doesn't belong in your body. You can put it on surfaces and on your skin, but not use it internally. Okay, so key features. I know most of you know this, so let me just skip through this. We are exposed to acid loads because of our lifestyle. All of you are familiar with Dr. Warburg and his research and his conclusion that cancer thrives in an acidic, oxygen-depleted environment. So if you want to increase your risk to develop cancer, do the things that make your body acidic, and do the things that deplete oxygen in your body. So stop exercising and eat foods that are very acidic, which are the processed foods, which are the foods that are high in animal proteins. So this is the list. And soft drinks, we know it's like a poison. It's really terrible. Okay. Now, what's interesting is Dr. Warburg was on the right track. His studies back in the 1930s showed that cancer cells are very active metabolically, but they don't require oxygen. And if we would have followed his line of thinking, we could have saved 70 or 80 years of research and been so much further along. But somewhere in that same period of time, we started to blame our health on our genes. We got off on a tangent here because our health is not dictated so much by our genes as by the environment that we put ourselves in, both physically and internally. Dr. Pilser mentioned there are buffers in our body. The lungs are the best buffer. The kidneys are, and the lungs are a long-term buffer. They're fast-acting. Then the kidneys, and then we have these chemical buffers. And these chemical buffers is where the ionized water can contribute to neutralizing the acidic buildup in our systems. This is also where the link between acidity and osteoporosis is believed to lie. Because if you look at the slide here, when we have a very acidic diet, whether it's from high animal protein intake, or it's from soft drinks, or it's from high fructose corn syrup, and those foods that most of us eat too much of, our body's trying to maintain a state of neutrality. And one of the best places to get a buffer for that system is from the bones. So it takes calcium carbonate, calcium phosphate out, and calcium gets excreted, and we lose bone density. Here's a list of the alkaline and acid foods. And some of you have seen this before. But look at that list. Study that. And remember that you already know what you should eat. Nature has provided these foods for us. But if you look at the convenient foods and the foods of the 21st century, and the foods that we like because they taste good, and sometimes they're cheaper than eating the raw vegetables and fruits, you'll see, if you're honest, that most of the time, many of us eat more of the acid foods than we do the alkaline foods. Okay, we talked about this process of alkalinity through electrolysis. You know about the oxidation reduction potential, so I'm not going to repeat myself there. There is evidence that the water is superhydrated, that it microclusters, and most of this research has been done by Dr. John. Dr. John is very well published. He did a lot of work with Dr. Eyring back at the University of Utah when he was in his early training. But some of my colleagues and scientists are critical of this concept because there's not a lot of support, not a lot of research on microclustering. What we can do, or what's been done, is measure the resonating or the vibrational frequency of microclustered water, which is the water that comes out of the machine. And when we do this, we can see there's a difference between the standard waters that we drink and the frequency that it vibrates, and the hexagonal or ionized water, which has a much lower frequency. If you just think about this, these water molecules are vibrating, and the water molecules from common water vibrates at a lower frequency, allows the water molecules to cluster together closer so that there's faster penetration and simpler penetration into the cell. And this is the concept that we use to explain this.